Our story opens in 18th century Germany, where we meet Catherine, sitting with one of her friends. The girl clearly resents her and mocks her over her father's recent bankruptcy and his loss of fortune. Catherine, however, seems entirely unbothered, her optimism shining through, and she takes great pleasure in irritating her friend the moment she reveals the news that she is to marry the Emperor of Russia and become Empress herself. Soon after, Catherine prepares for her journey to Russia. The moment she arrives, she kneels down and kisses the ground beneath her. Moments later, she meets Peter, the man who will become her husband. Upon seeing her, he turns to the priest and remarks that Catherine isn't quite as tall as he had imagined and asks him to send her back to her homeland. But it soon becomes clear he is only joking, and he bursts into laughter. Touched, Catherine offers him a tree branch to express her feelings toward him, and she goes on praising the letters he had sent her. Peter, however, knows nothing about any letters, since the men of the court were the ones who had been sending them. He then asks her to take a bath because of her strange smell, and informs her that Archie the priest will be the one teaching her the rules of court life. Catherine thanks Peter, calling him very kind, and Archie observes just how optimistic she truly is. Shortly after, Peter introduces her to Mariel, who will serve as her maid. As the night falls, Catherine attends her wedding celebration alongside Peter. At that moment, General Velementov appears, the man in charge of the war with Sweden, and introduces himself to Catherine. She tells Peter that she had seen many soldiers along the road and that they were in terrible condition. Enraged, Peter strikes Velementov across the face. He then raises a toast to Catherine, who tries to speak, but Peter cuts her off and presents her with a bear as a gift. Delighted beyond words, she throws her arms around the enormous creature. After the celebration, joy radiates from her face as she can hardly believe she is now a married woman. Mariel then asks her if she knows anything about what's to come, and Catherine tells her that her mother has already prepared her, adding that her dreams are sky high. But she is utterly devastated when she discovers that Peter only wants to be with her to produce an heir, and nothing more. Catherine, however, refuses to lose hope. She decides she will make him fall in love with her, and her grand dream becomes clear: to spread culture and science across all of Russia. The next morning, Catherine goes to join Peter for breakfast, her plan being to grow closer to him. Peter, however, takes her by surprise and leads her to the preserved body of his mother, telling her that he had refused to bury her. He then introduces Catherine to her. It's clear that Peter loves his mother dearly, to the point of seeing her as a saint. Soon after, he leaves Catherine behind, telling her he has business to attend to with the men, and asks one of the women to escort her to the ladies' council. When Catherine sits with them, she asks them about the last book they had read. They burst into laughter, thinking she is joking with them, since none of them know how to read in the first place. Catherine quickly realizes she cannot blend in with them, and a heavy sense of boredom settles over her. Mariel comes to her rescue, asking if she'd like to return to her chamber. But one of the women in attendance insults her, telling her to know her place well. And here, the truth becomes clear. Mariel herself was once a noblewoman of the court until her father insulted the emperor, who decreed that her entire family be reduced to servants of the palace. Mariel advises Catherine to be careful, lest she face another humiliation. It's clear that Mariel has grown to admire Catherine and her courage. As the night falls, Catherine heads to Peter's chamber, only to be shocked at the sight of him with another woman who turns out to be the wife of his guard, a man who tells her he loves the emperor and is ready to do absolutely anything for him. Sometime later, Catherine accompanies Peter on a hunting trip and tries to engage him in political conversation, only to discover just how shallow he truly is. She suggests opening a school, hoping to bring something of value to Russia. Catherine is overjoyed when Peter agrees, and she immediately begins preparing for it. She searches for the library until she finally finds it and is startled when she discovers Orlo hidden inside, reading. He is terrified the moment he sees Catherine, but she quickly puts him at ease. Orlo soon realizes just how cultured she is, and the two engage in deep discussion about books and philosophy. He is genuinely surprised to learn that Catherine intends to open a school for girls to teach them how to read, and is delighted when she asks for his help. When Orlo later runs into Peter, he is brimming with excitement and thanks him for allowing the girls to be educated. Peter, however, is bewildered since he had known nothing about it. Out of nowhere, he decides to burn the school to the ground. Catherine is devastated and confronts him over what he has done. Peter calmly tells her that women exist only to bear children, not to read. And just like that, Catherine's spirits come crashing down. The next morning, Catherine refuses to speak to Peter, so he leaves her behind and walks away. He grows frustrated when he learns she isn't pregnant and complains to Archie about her, telling him she isn't what he had imagined. He asks Archie to instruct her, and Archie agrees. Catherine senses what he wants from her without him even saying a word. Archie threatens her using her father, telling her they could cut off the money he has been receiving up until now. Catherine confesses to him that she is unhappy in the palace, but Archie simply asks her to pretend to be happy. She is utterly shattered when Peter finishes off her bear, and she slaps him across the face in front of everyone in attendance. She rushes out and completely breaks down, weeping uncontrollably. Peter follows after her and tells her that she is the only person who doesn't love him. Catherine, tears streaming down her face, tells him that she had loved him deeply, but he broke her heart. Drowning in grief, she tells him she misses her homeland, her family, and her friends, and she begs him to send her back. Peter refuses. He asks her who she was when she was once happy and joyful, and she tells him her life is over. Peter refuses her plea and warns her never to humiliate him again in front of anyone. Catherine begins to see herself as foolish for the dreams she once held, and Mariel comforts her. Seizing the moment, Catherine begs her to help her escape, and Mariel agrees, hiding her inside a trunk bound for Austria. For a brief moment, Catherine feels she has finally tasted freedom, but out of nowhere the carriage comes to a halt, and water begins flooding into the trunk. We see Peter watching as his soldiers drown her, only to pull her out at the last moment and bring her back to the palace. And here, Catherine decides to end her own life. She tells Mariel there is no other way, that she is married to a madman, and that she had spent her entire life believing she was born to do something great, that she had been created for a purpose. Mariel then reveals to her that the rule of Russia passes to the Empress should the Emperor die without leaving an heir. Catherine remembers the moment she arrived in Russia and kissed its soil, the moment she had felt true peace. And just like that, she begins to think of how she will rid herself of Peter. She tells Mariel she will turn to Orlo since she needs a philosophical foundation around which people can rally. Mariel warns her, telling her Orlo is one of the court men and that if the Emperor were to find out, he would finish her off. But Catherine doesn't care. Her life is already over anyway. Soon after, we see Peter with the men of his court, looking utterly bored out of his mind. He orders General Velementov to dance for him, and when the general refuses, Peter threatens to finish him off. Terrified, Velementov begins dancing on the spot. In that moment, Rostov walks in, a man from a great aristocratic family, presenting Peter with the peaches he so adores. But Peter is stunned at the sight of him sporting a beard, since he had forbidden anyone from growing one, wanting to be seen as a modern European emperor. Rostov pleads with him, telling him he doesn't want to shave because his face is covered in pimples and scars, and he doesn't want his wife to see him in such a state. Peter refuses, mocking him outright. Orlo tries to intervene and convince Peter to relent, but Peter holds firm. Frustrated, Rostov tells Orlo he will not be paying his taxes this month. Orlo calms him down and assures him he'll find a way to persuade the emperor. Soon after, Orlo actually tries to speak with Grigor, Peter's guard, attempting to get him to open up about the emperor. He tells Grigor he must surely be the man most in need of freedom, given what's been happening with his wife. Grigor is offended and threatens to strike him if he doesn't back off. Later, Catherine speaks with Orlo and asks him about Peter the Great. Orlo tells her that he was the father of the current emperor, a man who had truly been great, while the Peter of today carries no titles of his own. Catherine then attempts to mock the emperor in front of Orlo, testing whether she can pull him to her side. Delighted to find her suspicions confirmed, she tells Mariel she trusts Orlo and asks her to arrange a meeting with him. Orlo, meanwhile, tries to convince Velementov to stand with him and persuade the emperor about Rostov's beard. Velementov appears drunk, and it becomes clear he's been losing the war and watching his soldiers be finished off because of Peter's meddling. Peter then heads to his aunt's home and speaks with her about Catherine. His aunt tells him it's plain to see how miserable Catherine is, and warns him that her sorrow will spread throughout the entire palace. Peter tells her that Catherine has everything she could want, and that her duty is to make him happy, not to love him. He is deeply shaken when his aunt brings up his mother, telling him she had once seen something dark in him, and that perhaps his wife has seen the very same thing. She urges him to mend their relationship. As the night falls, Mariel speaks with Catherine and tells her she must seduce Orlo and draw him into a relationship with her so he can never betray her and reveal her secret to the emperor. Mariel begins teaching her how to entice him and make him fall for her. When the two meet, Catherine tries to grow closer to Orlo, but she fails, retreating awkwardly before him. Orlo is alarmed the moment he realizes she's trying to seduce him, and he leaves her standing there and walks away. Catherine runs after him, and in a slip of the tongue, she tells him she wants his help to finish Peter off and stage a coup. Orlo is terrified and rushes off in haste. Catherine immediately regrets her words, realizing she had moved far too quickly. The next morning, Peter asks Catherine to meet with him, and she is surprised to find that he has prepared breakfast for her, bringing her the strawberries she so loves. He asks her to put their troubles behind them and admits that he had been hurt by her because she didn't love him and because he isn't the romantic she had imagined. He tells her she had been naive to think such a thing in the first place and asks her to live the life of an empress. Catherine is stunned when he tells her he will bring her a lover because she is miserable and because he might one day grow furious with her over that misery and finish her off. Catherine mocks him, takes a bite of the strawberries he had brought her, then spits them out and tells him they taste foul, just like his idea. She leaves him there and walks away. Marielle decides to confront Archie, who, as it turns out, has forgotten about her entirely. She lies to him and tells him that Orlo had tried to assault the Empress. She does this to ensure that Orlo can never expose Catherine. Meanwhile, Catherine catches up with Orlo and chases after him, trying once again to convince him of her plan. She tells him they will create a philosophy and a system of governance, one that will inspire the transformation of Russia and allow its people to live with dignity and grace. Orlo is moved by her words, but still refuses to stand with her, begging her not to speak of the matter to anyone and promising to forget everything she had said. Peter then begins to grow tired of Catherine and decides to finish her off. Archie and Orlo both try to stop him, but he refuses to listen, and he is delighted when Georgina, the wife of Grigor, encourages him to go through with it. Soon after, Orlo runs to Catherine and warns her that the Emperor intends to finish her off. And just like that, Catherine decides to put on an act before Peter. She attends his celebration, pretending to be in good spirits, and goes on dancing with him. But she is horrified when he places the severed heads of Swedish soldiers before them as they eat, doing it to mock the enemy. Catherine completely breaks down, especially when he plucks out their eyes. Still, she forces herself to hold it together, mirroring his every move to convince him she is obedient to his will. Peter actually believes her, and he changes his mind, sparing her life. Catherine then tries once again to win Orlo over. She tells him she will not live on the margins as a coward, that she has come to understand she wants to live a great life now that love has crumbled before her. But Orlo remains afraid and refuses to help her. As Catherine leaves him, she sees the servants carrying away the soldiers' severed heads, so she takes them and asks Archie to bury them and pray over their souls. The next morning, Rostov attends the council with his beard still intact. Orlo tries to persuade Peter using the principle of free will, telling him it would make him appear open-minded and modern. Velementov agrees with Orlo's reasoning, but Peter holds firm in his decision, ordering Orlo himself to shave Rostov's beard. Terrified, Orlo is forced to obey. Soon after, Orlo meets with Catherine, blood still smeared across his face, and agrees to help her. The two begin discussing their plan, much to Marielle's annoyance, since they keep losing themselves in talk of books. Then they must find out whether Ivan is still alive or not, so that even if they finish Peter off, the army will stand with them in support, rather than turn against Catherine and install Ivan as emperor instead. Marielle tells them they don't even know where he is. Catherine is taken aback when she learns that Ivan is Peter's illegitimate brother. At that very moment, Peter walks in on them, accompanied by Leo, who has brought a gift for Catherine. Peter tells her that Leo is intelligent, that he reads books and poetry, and that he hopes she will find him to her liking. After Peter leaves, Catherine asks Leo to go, but he refuses, asking her to let him stay for a while, so the Emperor will believe everything is unfolding as he wishes. Otherwise, he would have him executed. Catherine reluctantly agrees. Orlo warns Catherine about Leo, telling her he could very well be a spy, and that he has seen the Emperor do this many times before. Catherine reassures him, telling him she will get rid of Leo, and that she will also begin searching for Ivan. Peter prepares to meet the soldiers returning from the war. In the meantime, Orlo speaks with Archie about Leo, trying to confirm whether he is a spy, only to discover that no one knows a single thing about him. Catherine then thanks Peter for the gift, but rejects it, telling him he is enough for her. Peter, however, insists on his decision. In that moment, the soldiers enter the hall, and Peter takes the medal off Velementov's chest, wanting to appear as though he had once been a warrior himself. He greets the soldiers, but his unease is plain to see, since they aren't convinced by him in the slightest. Catherine manages to draw the truth out of Peter's aunt and learns where Ivan is being kept. She discovers he has been locked away inside the palace, and that they want no one going near him. Peter then attends the soldiers' meeting, and it's clear he doesn't understand a single thing being said. He can't even locate the river on the map. The soldiers grow certain just how much of a failure he is, especially when he begins explaining his own plan. Peter feels deeply humiliated when they burst into laughter at his words, but Velimentov silences them. Mariel is taken aback when she learns that Catherine has discovered Ivan's location. She tells her they will need the army on their side and decides to speak with Velimentov, the army's commander, taking advantage of his admiration for her. Soon after, Catherine goes in to see Leo and speaks with him. He tells her he has brought her a gift and offers her a peach, asking her to eat it in a particular way to truly experience its taste. Catherine finds it delightful and tells him it tastes wonderful. She asks him to stay the night in her chamber so that the next morning he can thank Peter, and she can also thank him for the evening, and then he can leave and be safe. Leo agrees. Soon after, Catherine meets with Orlo and asks him to begin making moves toward the army. After leaving him, Catherine heads to Velimentov to speak with him, but he is drunk and tries to force himself on her because of his deep infatuation. Catherine snaps at him, shouting in his face, and storms out, leaving him behind. Orlo succeeds in speaking with one of the soldiers, a man clearly fed up with Peter, calling him an absolute fool. Orlo promises to introduce him to Catherine, telling him just how brilliant she is, and the soldier agrees. Peter, meanwhile, appears utterly miserable and decides to sleep in the chamber of Grigor and his wife. The next morning, Catherine speaks with Leo and tells him she will be having breakfast with Peter and intends to talk to him. Leo suggests they put on a little performance to make Peter believe them. When they arrive, he asks her to laugh out loud, but Catherine simply cannot pull off the act. Soon after, she joins Peter for breakfast and thanks him for his gift, telling him she enjoyed it immensely, and asks him to send Leo away. Peter is enraged and strikes Leo, refusing to believe she had actually enjoyed herself. Flustered, Catherine lies, telling him she had thought Leo was only meant to stay with her for a single day, and now insists she will keep him. Catherine is surprised when Leo gets up and carries on, as though nothing had happened, savoring his breakfast with ease. He tells her the Emperor has every right to do whatever he wishes, but he will never allow Peter to make him live in fear or rob him of the joys of life. Later, Catherine attends the ladies' council meeting, where the women are seething with anger toward her because she had played a trick on one of them, dressing her in a gown that looked just like the tent they were sitting in. And here, the truth comes out. Catherine had been taking revenge on this woman for slapping Mariel across the face. Mariel is overjoyed by what Catherine has done on her behalf. Orlo, however, is furious, since this lady is the wife of the very general who had agreed to help them, the one who had then gone back on his word after what had happened to his wife. He grows even more frustrated when he learns Catherine will not be parting with Leo, and that he will be staying with her for good. Catherine is taken aback when Leo asks her how it feels to be an empress. She tells him no one had ever asked her such a question before, but he already seems to know she doesn't love the emperor or the palace, and that she is miserable. We then see Peter, anxious about the speech he is about to deliver before the soldiers, terrified he might break down in front of them, since he will be speaking about his father. Catherine reassures him and encourages him to let his emotions show. Peter refuses, but he fails to keep his composure and bursts into tears. One of the soldiers mocks him, and Peter challenges the man to fight him, demanding he prove his manhood. The soldier agrees, but out of nowhere, Peter pulls out a knife and stabs him over and over again, then commands the rest of the soldiers to obey him and follow his speech. Peter then throws a celebration, and Catherine dances with him. After the festivities, she speaks with Leo, and it's clear she has grown fond of him. The next morning, Catherine meets with Orlo and reveals her plan to him. He is utterly impressed, and she promises him that Leo will never know a thing about it. Soon after, we see Catherine with Leo, looking happier than ever. Then suddenly, she remembers her meeting with Orlo and Mariel, and leaves him to go join them. Orlo informs her that the patriarch has passed away, and that Peter will be choosing a new one, so they must move quickly and make sure one of their own becomes the next patriarch. He then breaks the next piece of news. The ladies of the court are tarnishing her reputation, claiming she wasn't a virgin when she was married, all because of what she had done to the general's wife. Catherine refuses to believe it, telling him they love her. Orlo reminds her that she is a foreigner and that it's far too easy for these women to destroy her name. She must repair her reputation as quickly as possible before the matter spreads and reaches the men of the court, since they would need their support. Catherine agrees. She then goes to have breakfast with Peter, who appears stressed over the patriarch decision. Catherine offers to help him, but he laughs in her face simply because she is a woman. As Catherine leaves him, she comes across the general's wife, the very woman she had taken revenge on, now in tears because her husband has been sent away to war. Catherine tries to approach her and speak with her, but the woman gives her no chance, accusing her of being a whore. Catherine is shaken and asks Mariel what it is that makes this woman above all the others. Mariel tells her she is immensely wealthy and that she lavishes the ladies of the court with countless gifts. Archie, meanwhile, appears devastated by the patriarch's death, since he had considered him like a father. Mariel consoles him when she sees him in such a state, and Archie thanks her, then leaves to meet with the emperor, who has gone missing. Grigor knows where Peter is and tries to reassure him, telling him he will be by his side as he chooses the new patriarch. Orlo then asks Catherine to greet the bishop, the man who is on their side, so he can give her his blessing. He tells her the bishop agrees with some of their ideas. Catherine reluctantly agrees, only to notice that the bishop refuses to even look at her in the first place. Soon after, Peter begins the process of choosing the new patriarch, and Orlo tries to persuade him to pick the bishop on their side. But out of nowhere, one of the candidates sets himself on fire, since he loathes Peter and sees him as the devil himself. Peter is left utterly bewildered, unable to settle on anyone, and decides to throw it all aside and drown himself in drink. In the meantime, Catherine tries to win over the ladies of the court. She visits each of them in their homes, bringing gifts along with her. As the night falls, she heads to Leo's chamber, only to be unsettled at the sight of him with Peter. The two are clearly drunk and dancing together. The next morning, Leo comes to her in her chamber, and she tells him she had seen him with the emperor. He tells her he wants to be his friend, which only deepens her unease. Catherine tells him he is a skilled actor and asks him how she could ever trust him. Leo tells her that he is being honest with her, that she must follow her instincts. He confesses that he loves her and that walking away from him would shatter a great part of him, though he is prepared to bear it and accept whatever fate awaits him. Catherine hesitates, then asks him to leave, but stops him before he can go, telling him she will think it over. Sometime later, Catherine receives an invitation from the ladies of the court to attend their tea party. She believes they have changed their hearts toward her and now hold her in affection. But she soon discovers they intend nothing but revenge. The general's wife trips her while she is dancing and warns her to stay away from the ladies of the court and never try to take their place. Devastated, Catherine runs straight to Leo, who pulls her into his arms and tells her to let it out. She breaks down and tells him she wants to go back to her homeland, that she hates every single one of them. Leo soothes her, and the two go on talking afterward. The next morning, Peter asks Archie to be the one to choose the patriarch, since he believes Archie has a connection to God. Orlo is thrown into chaos and rushes to Catherine to tell her what happened, hurling insults at Archie and calling him a liar. Mariel slaps Orlo across the face, telling them Archie is a righteous man and good at heart. Orlo is enraged and tells her she is biased toward him only because he is her relative. He goes on insulting Archie, calling him a political animal who cares for nothing but protecting the church and its riches. But Mariel holds firm and keeps defending him. She tells Catherine that Archie was the only one who looked after her and her sister after their mother had passed away, to the point that he favored them over his own children, that he truly has a kind heart. Catherine then heads to Peter's aunt and asks for her help, telling her how much the ladies of the court despise her. Elizabeth advises her to make her voice heard among them, to never favor a servant over a lady, and that she must slap Mariel across the face in front of them all. As Catherine leaves her, she spots Archie out in the woods, clearly out of his wits. The moment she stands before him, he mistakes her for an angel. Catherine seizes the moment and asks him to be the patriarch himself. She tells him he is intelligent, that he cares for women, and that he could change Russia through his faith. Archie is deeply moved and breaks into tears. Soon after, he goes to Peter and tells him he has received a sign, that an angel had spoken to him and commanded him to be the patriarch. Orlo is stunned and tries to stop it, but Peter is convinced by Archie's words and agrees to make him the new patriarch, despite his young age. Meanwhile, we see Catherine at the ladies' council, trying to spark a conversation with them. The general's wife embarrasses her by asking about Leo, but Catherine doesn't give her the chance, telling them all about her relationship with him. Mariel then intervenes and answers on behalf of the general's wife. Catherine, displeased, asks her to apologize and return to her chamber. Mariel mocks her openly, imitating the sound of a horse, and just like that, Catherine slaps her across the face in front of everyone, warning her never to do such a thing again. She then turns her words on the ladies of the court, telling them her warning applies to them as well. She informs them she has already spoken with the emperor, who sees the matter as a personal insult to himself, and that should it happen again, he won't care how great or wealthy their families may be. The ladies are stricken with fear, unable to utter a single word. Catherine is pleased, feeling at last that she has managed to bring them under her control. Soon after, she decides to visit the soldiers along with Elizabeth, Peter's aunt. The two are utterly shaken when they arrive and see the state the soldiers are in. Catherine scolds the soldiers to their faces, since many of them had cut off their own hands. She completely breaks down as she stands beside the bodies being painted. On the way back, Elizabeth stops the carriage, steps out, and lets out a piercing scream. She asks Catherine to do the same to ease her soul. Catherine tells her they must put an end to the war. Elizabeth tells her they must accept reality as it is. Catherine grows enraged, throws the pastries they had brought with them, and begins screaming herself. When she returns to the palace, she snaps at Peter, demanding he put an end to the war. Peter refuses, telling her he is at war with the Swedes, just as his father had been. Catherine asks him to negotiate with them, and Peter tells her he would rather see his own life come to an end than speak with them. Catherine tells him that it is the soldiers whose lives are coming to an end, not his own. Peter pays no mind to her words, telling her she isn't Russian and could never understand what is happening, then leaves her behind to go eat. In that moment, Grigor is shaken when he sees his wife wounded because of Peter. Enraged, he begins hurling insults at the emperor. Georgina calms him down, treating it all as nothing, and tells him to wait until she is ready. But Grigor is set on revenge. He takes the paint that sits outside the door of his chamber and slips it into Peter's food. Soon after, Peter feels a sharp pain in his stomach. He vomits blood and collapses unconscious. Catherine is taken aback when Mariel bursts into her chamber and tells her that Peter is dying. When she rushes to his chamber, she finds everyone gathered around. Archie steps out and informs them that the doctor suspects he has cholera. Orlo is overjoyed and tells her this means Peter's life will come to an end within days and that she will become empress. Grigor decides to enter the chamber and stay with him. Georgina is surprised at her husband's courage. When everyone leaves the chamber, Grigor remains alone with Peter. He feels a heavy weight of guilt as he looks at him, but then remembers what Peter had done to his wife and presses a pillow over his face to suffocate him. In that moment, Georgina walks in on him and stops him from finishing the emperor off. She is shocked to learn he had actually tried to do it, and she slaps him across the face. She tells him to think about what would become of them if Peter were to die, since he is the only one who provides them with protection and a life of luxury. The next morning, Catherine prepares for the speech she will deliver before the men of the court. Mariel walks in and tells her she is preparing the gown she will wear, brimming with excitement, and tells her she is also putting together a list of every single person she wants to take revenge on. Catherine asks her to be patient for a while until she finishes what lies ahead of her, then thanks Mariel for standing by her side from the very first day they had met. Leo then walks in and asks her if she truly wants to be empress. Catherine tells him yes, and reassures him that they will remain together, that she needs him by her side. In that moment, they discover that one of Peter's guard dogs has died from the very same food the emperor had eaten, and they conclude that someone has poisoned him. Catherine prepares herself and attends the council meeting, speaking with absolute confidence. Everyone in attendance is stunned when she tells them she intends to end the war and abolish serfdom. They press her about the villages occupied by Sweden, about the Russian economy built upon the backs of serfs. Catherine is thrown off balance, only to realize she knows nothing about Russia in the first place. Orlo tries to salvage her image before everyone gathered, but he fails. After the meeting, Catherine tries to speak with Archie and promises him she will do better at the next one, telling him she is shaken because of her husband's illness. She is stunned when he tells her they will be searching for Ivan to take the throne after his brother. She is taken aback to learn that Mariel had been the one to let it slip and reveal to him that Ivan was in the palace. Catherine begins to suspect that someone is trying to seize the throne, and that this is why the emperor was poisoned. The palace is thrown into chaos once they learn that Catherine will be the empress. In that moment, Velimentov arrives and locks down the entire palace, posting guards on Catherine and telling her she could be a target for assassination just like the emperor. Catherine is confined to Peter's chamber. Elizabeth walks in and asks her whether she had been the one to poison the emperor. When Catherine tells her she didn't, Elizabeth apologizes to her. In that moment, Peter speaks and is bewildered to learn that someone has poisoned him, telling them no one in the palace despises him. He suspects Ivan is the one behind it and asks Catherine to finish him off. Flustered, Catherine asks him to rest. Elizabeth then leads her to Ivan's chamber. Catherine tries to speak with him, but fails completely since he is impossible to engage with. Elizabeth tells her she has a knife with her and orders her to do the deed. But Catherine refuses to listen, leaves her behind, and returns to her chamber. And here, she breaks down completely, unable to catch her breath from the weight of her anxiety and dread. In that moment, Orlo speaks with Velimentov, asking him whether he will support the Empress or not. As they are speaking, a guard rushes in and informs them that the Empress has vanished. At the very same time, she is with Peter in his chamber, begging him to live, because she isn't ready. Mariel walks in on her and asks her to finish Peter off and save Russia. Catherine refuses, telling her she wants to change Russia just as Mariel does, but never in such a way. Mariel then decides to do the deed herself, but Catherine intervenes and saves him. Enraged, Mariel strikes her with a pillow, and the two go on hitting each other until Orlo bursts in on them. Orlo joins Velimentov and Archie and asks them whether they will stand with Catherine. Archie tells them Ivan would be the better choice for Russia. But in that very moment, Elizabeth walks in carrying Ivan's body after she had finished him off. Terrified, Archie immediately takes back his words and tells Catherine he had wanted to choose her from the very beginning. Catherine is stunned at the sight of Ivan's body. In that moment, Peter wakes up and tells them he is hungry. Catherine feels utterly defeated, sensing she has failed and isn't ready to become Empress. Peter is a changed man after his recovery. We see him sitting with Grigor, showing him a bird, telling him that as his life was slipping away, he had come to realize he never wanted to be the man he once was again. Everyone in the palace is shaken when they see the bodies of every person who had served Peter his food before he fell ill. He stands before them and tells them he wants to be a beloved ruler of Russia. He encourages them to speak with him and bring forth their grievances. But everyone in the palace is too afraid to utter a word, given the sight of the bodies behind him. Peter reassures them, telling them he has become a new man, then offers them cake in celebration of his recovery. Orlo speaks with Catherine and tells her he will be heading to the front to speak with Velimentov and convince him to stand with their cause. Catherine agrees, but she remains downcast. She asks Leo whether she would truly be fit to rule Russia after her husband's death. Leo tells her she would be extraordinary, just as she always is. In that moment, Mariel walks in on them, visibly upset with Catherine. Catherine rushes after her, trying to speak with her, telling her that what has happened is for the best, as it gives them time to reorganize themselves anew. But Mariel pays no mind to her words, leaves her behind, and walks away. We then see Elizabeth grieving over Ivan's death. But Peter is unmoved, telling her he had never loved him in the first place. His aunt then decides to speak to him about Catherine, telling him she isn't ready to rule, and so she convinces him to bear an heir with her. She also urges him to distance himself from Georgina and focus on his wife. Peter hesitates, telling her Georgina makes him happy. Elizabeth grabs him by the ear and tells him she will be his undoing. Peter is rattled, and it becomes clear that his mother used to do the very same thing to him. His aunt tells him she had never believed her sister's words about him and that he must now prove her wrong. Peter agrees to her words. Peter then heads to Catherine's chamber, much to Leo's dismay, though there is nothing he can do about it. Catherine is terrified of becoming pregnant, so Mariel helps her, giving her a means to prevent it. Catherine is taken aback by the change that has come over Peter. She tries to engage him in conversation, urging him to grow closer to his people, to listen to them and consider their voices. She convinces him to spread art, science, and culture throughout the palace and across the entire country. Peter is taken with her words and agrees to let her help him select the artworks the people would love. An idea then strikes Catherine, and she tries to change the games played within the palace, inventing a new one and making it far more entertaining. Everyone in attendance is delighted. Peter then decides to play against Leo, and Catherine signals to Leo, asking him to lose on purpose. Leo obeys her wish, and Peter is overjoyed when he wins. Peter brings in someone to taste his food before him, fearful that he might be poisoned again, but he loses the joy of eating altogether, since he is left waiting so long that his meals turn cold. In that moment, Archie walks in on him and speaks with him about the matter of art and science, telling him he is walking down the wrong path. He reminds Peter of the dream he had during his illness, telling him he is heading toward debauchery and moral ruin, since modernity opens the gates to eternal damnation. But Peter pays no mind to his words, eager to eat quickly before his food grows cold. The next morning, we see Orlo on his way to meet Velimentov when, out of nowhere, he gets into an accident. He is horrified at the sight of a bear on the road devouring his driver. Orlo completely falls apart and flees, running deep into the woods. When Catherine walks into her chamber, she finds Archie lying on her bed, waiting to speak with her. He tells her that Peter isn't himself, that his brush with death has left him weak, and that the idea of art and science isn't truly his own. He calls them dangerous notions. Catherine tells him they are the future, but Archie doesn't agree with her words. He asks her not to let Peter stray from his God, warning her she would become an enemy of God himself. Catherine tells him things must change. Archie cuts her off and clamps his hand over her mouth, but Catherine suddenly bites down on his fingers until she draws blood. She warns him never to lay a hand on her again and throws him out of her chamber. She then tells Mariel that Archie is not her friend and will never stand by her side. Orlo keeps walking until the night falls upon him. He is gripped with fear at the sight of a Swedish soldier who has Russian soldiers bound and tries to hide himself. He then decides to speak with the soldier, since he is humiliating the Russian men, and tells him he is a Russian envoy. But out of nowhere, the soldier knocks him down. Orlo manages to break free after stabbing him in the stomach with a knife. The Russian soldiers urge him on, telling him to finish the man off and end his life, but Orlo crumbles and cannot bring himself to do a thing. Elizabeth finds a way for Catherine to conceive, and Catherine and Peter both burst into laughter at the method. Peter tells her he is thinking of putting an end to the matter of art and science and considering other approaches. Catherine asks him why, and Peter tells her about the dream he had as his life was slipping away, telling her Archie has convinced him that God wants to show him a different path. Catherine tells him that not every dream carries meaning. He tells her he had been thinking of his father and mother, that in that moment he had been afraid his life would end just as theirs had. Catherine tells him his mother had treated him cruelly. Peter tells her he had been afraid he would never be enough. Catherine is taken aback when he asks her to sleep in his chamber and asks her what their children would look like. In that moment, Orlo tries to help the Swedish soldier and offers him the Holy Bible to read from before his life comes to an end. But the soldier deceives him, knocks him down, and tries to finish him off. Enraged, Orlo stabs him over and over again until he finishes him off himself. Peter wakes up startled by the sound of a crow in his chamber, believing it to be a sign from God since he had seen a crow in his dream. But his guard walks in and finishes the bird off, telling him it was Archie who had placed the crow in his chamber. Peter rushes to Archie and tells him he had trusted him. Archie tries to defend himself, but Peter strikes him, hurls insults at him, and walks away. The next morning, Catherine prepares breakfast for Peter herself, telling him she will cook it right in front of him so he can eat it the moment it's hot. Peter is delighted. Catherine then suggests they bring scientists from France to consider new experiments, and Peter agrees to her proposal. Catherine seizes the moment and asks him to restore Mariel's father to his former position. But she is shocked to learn that the man had tried to engage in a relationship with the corpse of the late empress, the emperor's mother, and that this was why Peter had punished him, reducing him and his daughters to servants of the palace. Catherine does, however, succeed in having Mariel's dog returned to her. Mariel is overjoyed at the sight of him. Catherine tells her that the emperor has revealed a sensitive side and that she will use it to transform Russia through him. Peter then decides to put on a demonstration of the parachute that Catherine's guard had invented. An idea strikes him the moment he sees Mariel's dog, and he straps the dog into the parachute and sends him flying through the air. Mariel is terrified for her dog, but the experiment is a success, and Catherine is overjoyed. Catherine then brings in countless paintings and hangs them throughout the palace. Everyone who lays eyes on them is so deeply moved that they break into tears. Orlo returns to the palace, and Velimentov tells him he has heard about the soldier's story. Orlo tells him he was terrified, and that he came to realize the matter is simple after all. Velimentov tells him this is how it always begins, but afterward, he will start thinking about the best way to do the deed. Peter then surprises everyone in the palace with a box and asks them to place inside it anything they want from him. Catherine then brings him a gift, a printing press. Peter rejects it outright, since it is forbidden in Russia by order of the church. But Catherine succeeds in convincing him, showing him printed images and telling him just how entertaining they are. Peter is delighted and agrees. Archie objects to the printing press, but Peter pays no mind to his words. Soon after, Catherine begins to feel a heavy weight of guilt toward Leo because she has grown closer to Peter. But she convinces herself that she loves no one but Leo. In that moment, we see Mariel trying to grow closer to Vlad, Catherine's guard, only to be horrified when she sees his back and discovers he has the pox. She locks him inside a wardrobe so no one will see him. Catherine appears happy, but her spirits come crashing down when Peter shows her the scientific experiments he has been overseeing, which turn out to be completely useless. We then see Georgina devastated because Peter has distanced himself from her and has grown close to his wife. Catherine learns that Vlad has the pox and promises him she will help him and make sure he recovers. She then summons the palace doctor, who tells her they will burn him alive. Catherine is shaken to learn they burn infected servants, while the wealthy are forced to be treated. She decides to speak with Peter and convince him to treat the infected instead of setting them on fire, but he refuses, since all the nobles reject her proposal and tell her there is no other solution. Catherine falls silent, since she has no solutions of her own to offer. She decides to go to Orlo and ask for his help. He hands her a book and tells her there is no way other than inoculation, a method that helps the body fight off the disease. Orlo tells her many regions have tried it and seen results, but it is forbidden in Russia because of the church. The next morning, Catherine speaks with the doctor and asks him to prepare the vaccine that will be injected into the people so they can avoid the disease, then to speak with the emperor and the patriarch. The doctor tells her it is her task to speak with them, while he will prepare the treatment. Catherine tries to comfort Vlad and tells him he will recover very soon. He asks her to bring him a book to read while he sits alone, and Catherine agrees. She tosses the book to him and takes every precaution so as not to be infected with the disease. Soon after, she meets with Archie and tries to convince him of the inoculation, but he refuses, telling her medicine is his domain alone. Catherine stands before him and tries to stop him from speaking to the emperor, but he runs past her and goes straight to him. Catherine is taken aback when she sees offensive drawings of herself spread throughout the palace. She learns that Leo had been the one to draw them. It turns out he had done it in a drunken state, out of jealousy over her relationship with Peter. Still, she tries to keep the matter hidden from Peter. Catherine then tries once again to convince the emperor of the inoculation, telling him there is no need to finish off the servants when they have the means to save them. But Peter refuses after learning that they would have to inject themselves with the very disease as a method of treatment. Catherine then goes to Leo, who confesses to what he has done the moment he sees her. She tells him she is trying to do something important and that his drawings are not helping her at all. He tells her he is jealous. Catherine then confesses to him that she loves him and that all she wants is to hold him with one hand and Russia with the other. When Catherine learns of it, she decides to head to the camp to search for Vlad and is shattered to find that his life has come to an end. She returns to the palace, where Peter meets her and tells her he will be putting an end to the printing press because of the foolish things that have been spreading. Enraged, Catherine decides to try the vaccine on herself in front of everyone gathered. She cuts open her hand and lets it enter her bloodstream. Peter is terrified and orders the guards to confine her to her chamber. The doctor fears for her and remains seated by her side, but nothing happens to Catherine. She tells Mariel to inoculate her, but Mariel tells her the emperor has issued a decree forbidding inoculation. Catherine tells her she had found Vlad, and Mariel is devastated to learn that he has passed away, bursting into tears. Catherine is deeply shaken when she sees the camp of the sick set ablaze. The next morning, Peter waits for her at breakfast, but she doesn't come. He goes to her chamber, gives her a jewel as a gift, and asks her to thank him and admit her mistake. Catherine tells him the words he wants to hear, though she isn't convinced in the slightest. Soon after, Peter meets with the men of the court and discusses with them the matter of the Swedish ambassador who will be visiting them. Peter decides to finish the man off, cut off his head, and send it to the King of Sweden himself. In that moment, Catherine meets with Velimentov and tries to convince him to stand by her side, but he keeps flirting with her, paying no mind to a single thing she is saying. Catherine learns that Peter intends to kill the ambassador, so she convinces him to change his mind, telling him they have begun negotiating with him because he is stronger than they are. Peter asks her about her own stance, and Catherine tells him she is in awe of him. Peter agrees and stops his men from finishing the ambassador off at the very last moment. Soon after, Catherine meets with Leo, who tells her all about his day. He is upset because Catherine refuses to share her own day with him or tell him anything that concerns her. Grigor appears troubled and begins behaving strangely, to the point of finishing off Peter's favorite bird and presenting it to him as a gift. Catherine then prepares to travel with Peter to Sweden to discuss the matter of peace, but Orlo objects, telling her peace will only make Peter more beloved, and as a result, it will be far harder to overthrow him. Catherine, however, holds firm in her position, telling him she will share everything with Leo. Orlo refuses and reminds her of her promise. Catherine changes her mind and decides to ride in the carriage with Velimentov to try once again to convince him to help her. But he flirts with her once more, telling her how beautiful her eyes are. Catherine is enraged and slaps him across the face, steps out of the carriage, and rides with her husband instead. When they arrive in Sweden, they are welcomed by the king and queen, who appear remarkably accommodating. The king turns out to bear a striking resemblance to Peter, and the two quickly find themselves in perfect harmony. Catherine then speaks with the queen and praises Sweden, telling her how much she admires the country and its system of governance, since they have a free press, strong education, and democratic processes. The queen thanks her for her words, but warns her about freedom, telling her that the people now want to turn against them and finish them off because of all the knowledge her husband had given them. As the night falls, Catherine sees Velimentov sitting with the commander of the Swedish army. The two are clearly in good spirits together, speaking about their feelings toward the war, and it becomes clear that both of them despise it. After the Swedish commander leaves, Catherine sits with Velimentov and apologizes for slapping him. She suggests they become friends and reveals her plan to him, telling him she intends to stage a coup against the emperor. But Velimentov refuses to help her, telling her she isn't a leader and that anyone in the court could turn against her. Even him. Catherine tells him he would never do such a thing. Velimentov tells her that is the very problem, that she would never know who would turn against her. The next morning, Peter takes a walk with the King of Sweden, and the two speak about their own experiences. It turns out they both suffer from the very same thing, that they cannot break free from the shadow of their fathers, that they have always felt their fathers were better men than they are. Soon after, Peter sits with Catherine and showers the King of Sweden with praise, telling her he is the only man who truly understands him. Catherine senses that Peter has begun thinking about his father, that he wishes his father were still alive to see him ending his first war. Peter is deeply moved and asks her how she could possibly know what he is thinking. Catherine takes his hand and tells him she is his wife. Peter then attends the meeting to settle the terms of peace, and matters proceed with absolute ease. But Peter is enraged when the King of Sweden asks him for the city of St. Petersburg, telling him the city belongs to them and that his own father had taken it from them. The King of Sweden begins insulting him, telling him he has no accomplishments to his name. Enraged, Peter strikes him, and the two break out into a brawl. Peter rejects the peace. In that moment, Mariel walks into Catherine's chamber and sees Leo standing there, holding a letter in his hand. Mariel learns that he intends to return to his homeland and leave Catherine behind. And just like that, she decides to confess everything to him, telling him that Catherine intends to stage a coup against the king. Catherine, meanwhile, decides to intervene and mend things between Peter and the King of Sweden. She tells the king he needs peace more than they do. His wife also tries to convince him, telling him he will not be victorious if he reclaims St. Petersburg, since he needs to improve trade for the economy to flourish. Catherine tells him the freedom they believe in is a great thing, but he needs a chance, or it will be his undoing. The king is convinced by her words and decides to speak with Peter, apologizing to him for what had happened at the meeting. Catherine then begins by telling them that Peter had been speaking in his sleep and had come up with a brilliant solution. She tells them they each have 2 regions in which they are fighting. Each of them will claim victory in one region, and they will spread the news through their own press. Afterward, they will announce the treaties. And at that point, each country will believe it was the one to win the war. They will speak of the battle they had won and ignore the others, and the map will return to exactly what it had been before the war. Each country will reclaim its land, and they will forget all that has happened, and everyone will come out a winner. Peter and the King of Sweden agree to the plan and shake hands. On the way back, Catherine speaks with Velimentov, refusing to give up, and asks him to help her. He tells her he had watched her as she made the agreement, and that she has rendered all those deaths meaningless. Catherine is shaken when he tells her she is dangerous, that she is a traitor. He steps out of the carriage, fetches liquor from the king, and returns to her once more. Catherine is taken aback when he agrees to join her, along with Orlo and Mariel. When they return to the palace, everyone gathered welcomes them and blesses them on their success. Peter thanks her, telling her he doesn't actually speak in his sleep. Catherine then decides to tell Leo everything. But when she walks into the chamber, she discovers he already knows, and she is overjoyed when he decides to join them and help them. Catherine then attends a meeting, and Orlo is displeased the moment he lays eyes on Leo. But Catherine convinces him, telling him Leo has many skills and will be able to help them. Soon after, Orlo lays out his plan, which is for them to bring the powerful local men over to their side. Orlo tells them that all of them will be attending the monthly gatherings of the aristocracy, and that they must seize the opportunity and work to win them over. Velimentov speaks up, telling them they must finish Archie off. Mariel is enraged and threatens to disfigure his face if he ever lays a hand on him. Catherine intervenes and asks them to leave the matter of Archie to her. In that moment, Peter discovers that his guard has been finished off, and Elizabeth grows anxious for him, fearing someone is trying to kill the emperor. But Peter pays no mind, convinced that everyone loves him. Soon after, Peter attends the gathering and is taken aback at the sight of Rostov without his beard. His face turns out to be disfigured, just as he had said. Velementov seizes the moment and gets the emperor to mock one of the nobles they want to bring to their side, so it would be easier to win the man over. After the gathering, Velementov and Leo speak with the noble and try to convince him to turn against Peter. But he refuses, and Leo slips up and brings up Catherine's name. And just like that, they are forced to finish him off so he doesn't expose them. In that moment, Mariel succeeds in bringing Rostov to their side, since the two have known each other for a long time. Orlo also succeeds in winning over one of the nobles. Catherine is shaken when she learns that Leo had let it slip and that they were forced to finish off one of the nobles. Catherine asks them not to do a thing, telling them they will keep silent and treat it as a random act of murder. But Peter is utterly enraged when he finds out, since the man whose life had come to an end was a friend of his father's. He goes on, shattering everything in front of him. Catherine tries to calm him, telling him the people love him and that no one wants to finish him off. But Peter decides to torture anyone in the court to find out who wants to do the deed. And quickly, Catherine tries to stop him, but she fails, and Peter draws up a list of names of those who will be tortured, leaving Grigor, Georgina, Catherine, and his aunt off of it. Catherine then meets with her allies, who suggest they finish Peter off. She refuses, telling them they will not finish anyone off, since the situation is far too dangerous. She informs them that the emperor will not rest until he finds the conspirators, and that they must find someone to pin the matter on so it falls far from them. In that moment, Peter arrives and asks Catherine to step out with him so he can protect her among his guards. The two then sit together, and Catherine tries to convince him that Archie is the traitor and that he must place him under house arrest at once. Peter is convinced by her words and praises her brilliance. Catherine is shattered at the sight of everyone in the court being tortured and feels every eye in the room is fixed on her. And just like that, she decides to be tortured herself to convince them all of her innocence. Catherine passes the test, and Peter is utterly terrified for her, ordering the guards to put an end to the torture. Archie then decides to speak with Elizabeth and convince her to be the empress after Peter, since Catherine has had a corrupting influence on him because of her progressive ideas. But Elizabeth refuses to hear another word and throws him out of her chamber. We then see Mariel with Rostov. She tells him there is a secret passage they can use to enter Peter's chamber. Rostov is thrilled and decides he will be the one to finish him off. In that moment, we see Catherine in Peter's chamber trying to speak with Grigor, who appears clearly troubled. Catherine seizes the moment and tries to plant doubt in the emperor about Grigor, asking him whether Grigor would want to finish him off because of what he has been doing with his wife. Georgina overhears her and hurls insults at her. Peter walks in and tells her that Grigor loves him and could never finish him off. After they leave, Georgina and Catherine break out into a fight. Grigor grows enraged with Peter and tells him he is troubled because of his relationship with his wife. Peter promises him he will never go near her again, then keeps on speaking about Catherine. Grigor notices that Peter is in love with her. As they are speaking, Rostov walks in on them and tries to finish Peter off. But he fails, since Georgina and her husband come to Peter's defense, and the two finish Rostov off. Catherine is utterly shattered. She stands frozen in place, unable to move. Georgina tells her she isn't Russian, the way she imagines herself to be. Mariel is shaken at the sight of Rostov's body, and she rushes to Archie's chamber. Archie believes she had been plotting with him on her own to reclaim her place in the palace, and he pulls her into his arms and comforts her. Peter is convinced that Rostov had been the one who wanted to finish him off because of the matter of his beard, and he puts an end to the lockdown. He and Catherine then celebrate with everyone in the palace, all of whom appear bitter toward him because of the torture and the wounds still marking their bodies. But Catherine seizes the moment and addresses them, telling them she is grieving and that her heart aches at the sight of them. Yet despite all of it, they are united and understand that they are all Russians, and she promises them a bright future, one in which they will trust one another, bound by nothing but their love for Russia. Everyone in attendance is deeply moved by her words and breaks into applause. After the celebration, Peter praises her, telling her she had been magnificent. He stops her and tells her he is saddened that their confinement together has come to an end. Catherine is taken aback when Peter confesses his love for her. She is even more shattered when she returns to her chamber and discovers that she is pregnant with his child. Catherine remains in shock afterward, unable to believe it herself, until the day of her birthday arrives. And just like that, she decides to finish the emperor off and seize the rule from him. She tells Leo she is pregnant at the very same time Peter is preparing her birthday celebration for her. Catherine then heads to Velamentov's chamber and reveals her plan to him, asking him to teach her how to kill Peter. Attends Rostov's funeral alongside Peter's aunt, who appears unconvinced by what had happened. She tells Peter that something is missing, that they don't know what it is. But Peter pays no mind, telling her the traitors are fated to reveal themselves and that he will cut their heads off when they do. Velamentov brings Catherine a body so she can practice on it. She is frightened at first, but she manages to stab the body again and again, and she is pleased with herself. She tells Velamentov she will finish Peter off in her own way. Soon after, Catherine meets with Leo, who brings her a peach as a birthday gift. At the very same moment, Peter is watching them from the window. Peter appears jealous of Leo, and he is gutted at the sight of Catherine pulling him into her arms over his gift. Catherine then speaks with her allies and reveals her plan to them, asking Orlo to go to Archie's chamber and lock him inside. Mariel believes her when she says she will not kill him, but Catherine is lying, having agreed with Orlo that he is to finish him off. And as it turns out, Orlo had been thinking the very same thing. Catherine pulls him into her arms, and he promises her they will be victorious. When Catherine returns to her chamber, she finds Elizabeth waiting for her. Elizabeth wants to confirm whether she is pregnant or not by having her water a tree with her urine. If the tree turns green, it means she is with child. Catherine lies to her, telling her she has just used the bathroom, but Elizabeth insists and keeps giving her water to drink. Catherine is forced to hold it in. In that moment, Elizabeth asks her how she felt after finishing Ivan off. And Catherine tells her she had lost a small child of her own, and that she believed she had sent Ivan to her son so the two could be friends. Catherine refuses to relieve herself in front of her, so Elizabeth leaves. But Elizabeth has already figured out that Catherine is the one who wants to finish Peter off. Catherine denies it when Elizabeth confronts her with the truth, but she can no longer hold it in. She is forced to relieve herself and admit it. Catherine tells her she knows full well she will be a better ruler of Russia than Peter. Elizabeth tells her she has spent her entire life preserving the emperor's bloodline. Catherine reveals to her that she is pregnant with Peter's child and asks her if she will stand by her side. Elizabeth agrees, but on the condition that she does not finish him off. Catherine lies to her and gives her word. Soon after, Peter asks Leo to join him on a hunting trip. He seizes the moment and has his guard shoot Leo in the shoulder. His plan is to kidnap Leo and keep him far away from Catherine. In that moment, Catherine prepares to meet Peter and carry out her plan, but she is taken aback when she walks into his chamber and finds that he has brought her Voltaire as her birthday gift, the famous French writer himself. It becomes clear that Catherine adores him, and she refuses to finish Peter off in front of him. At the very same time, Velamentov is speaking with his soldiers, informing them they will be finishing the emperor off, and that they will be locking down the palace once the news spreads. The soldiers agree and are overjoyed. Orlo heads to Archie's chamber and lies to him, telling him he has done many wrongs and wants to confess to him. Archie soothes him and brings him a drink. Orlo tries to finish Archie off, but he fails, since Mariel walks in on them, sees what is happening, takes the knife from him, and locks the two of them inside with the key. We then see Catherine engaged in conversation with Voltaire about his books, looking happier than ever. She is deeply moved by the letter Peter has written for her on the occasion of her birthday. After Voltaire leaves, Catherine sits with Peter and tells him he is the strangest creature she has ever seen, since he is cruel and devoid of feeling, yet at the same time tender and peculiar. Catherine readies the knife to strike him, but she pulls back when Peter reads to her the letter from Leo, in which he tells her he is leaving her and returning to his homeland. Catherine is shaken and realizes Peter is mocking her, that he has surely kidnapped Leo. Out of nowhere, she lunges at him with the knife, but Peter manages to overpower her. He believes she wants to finish him off because of Leo and tells her she truly loves him. He then locks her inside the chamber, leaves her behind, and walks away. In that moment, Mariel arrives and learns that Catherine never went through with it. She is enraged when she learns from her that she had truly been planning to finish Archie off, and she leaves her behind, refusing to open the door for her. We then see Velamentov growing weary of the wait. He notices that one of his soldiers intends to betray him and inform the guards of the assassination. Velamentov finishes the man off and begins attacking the guards along with his soldiers. At the very same time, Orlo is locked in a struggle with Archie, trying to finish him off. But he fails. Archie strikes him on the head with a massive book and finishes him off. Mariel is shattered at the sight of him, and Archie demands that she sever ties with Catherine or her own life will come to an end. And just like that, Mariel decides to speak with Peter and reveal his wife's plan to him. Peter is deeply moved, especially when he learns that she is pregnant, and he breaks into tears. He walks into Catherine's chamber and threatens to finish her off, telling her he had truly loved her. But he weakens the moment Catherine takes his hand and places it on her belly so he can feel their child. Peter asks her why it is that she doesn't love him. She tells him she does love him in a certain way, but she loves Russia more. She dares him to finish her off and asks him to surrender and step down from the throne. Peter asks her why she would do such a thing. She tells him it's because he refuses to admit that she is better than he is. But Peter refuses to surrender. He shows her Leo and threatens to finish him off if she doesn't order the soldiers to stand down. Terrified, Catherine sends a message to Velementov asking him to halt the battle. Soon after, she steps out of the chamber and tells Velementov she will not allow Leo's life to come to an end. Velementov refuses, telling her the moment has come and that no one will ever stand by her side again if she pulls back now. He asks her to look at everyone around her and see the hope in their eyes. He tells her he is waiting for her signal, and the moment it comes, he will fire, and she will begin anew. Catherine is deeply moved at the sight of the people, sensing just how much they need her. She then meets with Leo and breaks down in tears, unable to speak a word. Leo realizes she has chosen to sacrifice him. She tells him she loves him with all her heart, but that she will be able to change the world. Leo tells her he is certain of it, that Russia is her destiny. Catherine pulls him into her arms and weeps. She then leaves him behind and returns to Velementov, giving him the signal. He fires at once, and the series comes to an end.